Hello and welcome to Sincho Talks, where stories live beyond the pages. Now, Alnor, have you ever chased something you thought was love, only to realize that it was all just an illusion?
Of course, all of us at least have tried chasing, but it was never love. And that's exactly what Dead Stars is all about.
Now we know what our topic for today is. Dead Stars by Paz Marquez Benitez. Dead Stars is the first modern Philippine short story in English, showing how feelings fade just like the stars whose light is already dead. We'll explore how characters like Julia and Esperanza reveal women's struggles with choices, freedom, and identity in the male centered society.
Alfredo Salazar, torn between duty and desire. His fiancée Esperanza reflects tradition and societal expectations, while Julia Salas represents passions and freedom. Supporting them are Don Julian, Alfredo's wife's father, and Calixta, who brings lighter moments together. They reveal the struggle between love, choices, and social norms.
And much of the story happens in Alfredo's hometown, with scenes unfolding in his house, Esperanza's home, and Julia's place in the province. The setting reflects not just physical places, but also the cultural atmosphere that shapes the characters' choices and conflict. Now, we're gonna talk about Julia and Esperanza's life is in the story.
Blessy, how are women treated or expected to behave in the story?
Well, women, especially Julia and Esperanza, are seen as patient, submissive, and loyal, often waiting for men's decision rather than making choices for themselves. They're presented as passive figures without full control of their own lives and relationship. The life of women on the said story are treated as if they were like robots, only waiting and following men's instruction. And now, talking about how women are treated in the story, now let's talk about how they're treated, how their emotions are treated. Now, Alnor, are Esperanza and Julia's emotion validated on the story?
Not really. Esperanza's feelings are mostly ignored as she silently accepts Alfredo's lack of commitment. Meanwhile, Julia's emotions are dismissed once Alfredo decides to marry Esperanza. Both women experiences take a backseat to Alfredo's struggles and indecision. The story acknowledges her long wait for Alfredo and the loneliness she have felt after their marriage. And Esperanza, she was ignored and waits for Alfredo's choice, making Esperanza's feelings invalidated.
And now, that is Julia and Esperanza's life is in the story. The silent struggles of Esperanza and Julia reveals how women were expected to endure love, loyalty, and restraint in a male-centered world, raising the questions, were they truly free to choose or just bound to society's expectation?
Before that, Blessy, is it fair how Alfredo treats Julia and Esperanza? How does this show power between men and women?
Definitely not. He keeps both women emotionally bound while he restless with his desires. He tells himself he is bound by an engagement, yet he admits that it feels like a straitjacket. This shows the imbalance of power. Men had the freedom to delay and decide, while women risk their reputation if they resist or questions those choices made by men. Alfredo does not consider any of the two's feelings. So now, Alnor, Why does Esperanza stay silent or accept what happened?
Because women at that time were expected to endure and preserve appearances. The text describes her as a woman with a conscience, priding herself on her sense of duty and righteousness. Breaking an engagement would bring shame, so she chooses acceptance over confrontation, highlighting how societal pressure limited women's freedom. By doing so, she accepts what happens not because she's unaware, but because society at that time is expected that women to endure, stay loyal, and keep their relationship intact. One that chooses acceptance. Her silence is not weakness, but rather a reflection of the limited choices available to women at that time. She becomes the image of duty and endurance, even if it means burying her own feelings. Now, Blessy, what does the story say about how women were seen in society during that time?
Well, before we answer that, let us have a 1 minute break. Since Show Talks will be back.
We need some backup! Not so rough!
Women in Dead Stars were valued mainly for virtue and patience and also their role as wives, rather than individuality or emotions. Esperanza is described as a woman with conscience, priding herself on her sense of duty and righteousness, showing how her birth lay in obedience and endurance, while Julia, on the other hand, though more independent, still withdraws to preserve her dignity, revealing that even strong women were bound by social expectations, especially that the expectations on women at that time were highly strict, and ruining her dignity would mean shame to her family. Now, enough talking about Julia and Esperanza. Let's talk about Alfredo. Alnor. In what ways does Alfredo's indecision reflects male privilege?
Alfredo's wavering shows male privilege. He could delay and pursue Julia and view his engagement as a straitjacket. Without losing honor, meanwhile, Esperanza risked shame, even if she resisted, and Julia had little choices but to walk away. Men's freedom was normalized. Women bore the consequences in silence. Alfredo's indecision is seen as a human weakness, but if a woman acted the same, she'd be labeled immoral or disloyal. It highlights a gender imbalance, where men had the privilege of choice, while women bore the burdens of silence and sacrifice. Esperanza has no real power to question or end it without being judged as unfaithful or improper.
Dead Stars, I reflect on Dead Stars is how women like Esperanza and Julia live within limits set by male-centered society. Esperanza stays silent and accepts her role as a dutiful fiancée, and while Julia quietly withdraws despite her feelings. Both women's choices are shaped less by freedom and more by expectations of loyalty, patience, and propriety. Alfredo, on the other hand, has the privilege to hesitate to pursue and to decide without facing the same judgment as Julia and Esperanza. From a feminist view, the story reveals the imbalance of power between men and women in love and relationships. It reminds me that true love should not be built on silence or sacrifice alone, but on equality where both partners' voices and choices matters.
My reflection on Dead Stars it made me realize how Alfredo's indecision is more than just a personal flaw. It reflects the privilege men have in relationships. He could hesitate, explore his feelings, and even risk hurting both women without facing serious judgment. In contrast, Esperanza remained silent, bound by the expectation of loyalty and patience placed on women. Julia too had to quietly step aside, protecting her dignity. This imbalance shows how love at that time was not always about choice for women but about endurance and sacrifice. For me, the story is a reminder that true equality in relationships means both voices matter. That love should not be shaped by silence or privilege but by mutual respect and honesty.
Alfredo's indecision, Esperanza's silence, and Julia's dismissal all reflect how gender roles shaped relationship in the 1920s.
The story reminds us that love is not only the issue at stake. Power, freedom, and voice are equally important. A feminist lens helps us see how women's struggles are often silenced, but also these stories can inspire reflection today.
And that's where we'll wrap up today's episode. Next time, we'll continue exploring Filipino literature through another short story, Love in the Cornhouse by Ida Rivera Ford, to see how it portrays women's resilience in changing society. So, stay tuned!